Hello everyone, this is part 52 of What If Naruto and Hinata trained together and a spark happened, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Shadow Possession Jutsu, Shikamaru's art grabbed the hidden grass genin and held him fast. The young teen's eyes widened when Sakura walked up to him. Ino and Naruto had taken down the second scout in a similar manner. Ino kept their target just as immobile with her mind transfer. Hinata stopped the last opponent solo, using her 8 trigrams 32 volts to disable the younger woman without knocking her out. Niece, Anko complimented them simply as she and the remaining sand and leaf ninjas rejoined their comrades. Naruto and Sakura placed their respective marks back to back, and Hinata leaned the conscious yet immobile grass shinobi against her comatose friends, facing the invaders. Now, let's talk. Anko smirked darkly, leaning down so she was face to face with the unfortunate lookout. You're sure about this, Lady Tsunade? Anko prompted, eyeing her staff blade apprentice dubiously. Naruto just grinned back. More or less, the Hokage shrugged. I've seen the three of them try it, and it works fairly well. With Ino helping Sakura on the medical side, it should be safer. And it does free up a big chunk of our forces for the waterfall, the sound, and to stay here on defense. But it's Anko's call, knucklehead, the Sannin instructed Naruto sharply. If she tells you to pull the plug, you do it. And this doesn't mean you have free reign to run around using this jutsu, either. If I hear about you using it without my express permission, I'll have it sealed in your mind and I'll bust you, your teammates, and anyone else who helped you back to Genin. Do I make myself clear? Fine, I get it, Grandma Tsunade, he agreed sourly, to Hinata's relief. Good, the Hokage seemed mollified as well. Now, a few points about this mission. We are trying to liberate the hidden grass village, so as much as you can, avoid any grass shinobi you encounter. Shizuka's a fair game, since we can't reliably confirm their origins, they are sworn to Guki, and the oath K them if anyone finds their idinis anyway. But we want to leave Ayameko with as many people as we can, so they have enough ninjas to at least start to defend themselves, in case Guki attacks them again before this war is done. And speaking of Ayameko, Tsunade remembered, there is a good chance she will be leading the remains of the grass loyals from the land of greens to make it a three-pronged attack. I can't guarantee it, she was still trying to convince her uncle. But if she does, her people will cut a diagonal line through their shields, not unlike what the Akatsuki did, so our people and the sand ninjas can tell which grass ninjas are on our side. Finally, the Hokage frowned at them sternly. Our primary target is the man called Leader, who also happens to be Pain's Pretapath. Him will help us in a number of ways. It will cut off the direct and immediate contact with Guki. It might allow the grass loyals still hiding in the village to take command, and it will be a step towards fulfilling our contract with Conan. Speaking of which, our guest has asked to speak with you before you go, Naruto. Huh, he grunted in surprise. Okay, I'll stop by her place. The partial legion Shizuka skirted the edge of the land of waterfalls, carefully avoiding the leaf sentries. They were not as stealthy as Kohaku would have liked. More than half of them were the retrained bandits instead of converted shinobi. And Guki had designed their Susanoo training around combat rather than stealth. Though the Six Tails Jinchuriki knew that her husband had multiple, practical reasons for the choice, it made it harder to rush reinforcements to where they were needed, without being detected. The shapeshifter was forced to deploy some of the former Cloud Ninjas in a loose border formation around the main body of her forces, to make sure they were not discovered. And on top of that, now I'm going back to that place, Kohaku sighed as she thought that, and her action that didn't escape the lieutenant behind her. Is something amiss, General? The red-masked warrior asked formally. Nothing important, she explained, not wanting to worry him. I just could have gone the rest of my life without seeing the village hidden in the grass again. The defector had been set up in the suddenly vacant condo directly above Naruto's home. Uzumaki knocked on her door hurriedly, only having an hour before the two teams and the Sand Ambassador were scheduled to leave. Conan answered the door in a t-shirt and loose pants, having agreed it was better that she forego any ninja equipment. Naruto-kun, thank you for coming, she bowed her head slightly. No problem, Konan-san, he forced himself to remember to add the honorific to her name, even though he did not normally use the polite postscripts. His statement came out more smoothly than he felt. The defector stirred conflicting emotions in the teen, pity for what she and Nagato had been through, camaraderie for a fellow student of Jiraiya, and suspicion for an informant who seemed too good to be true. Would you like to come in? She offered, apprehensively. Sorry, but I don't have a lot of time, he said candidly. Of course not, she nodded, you are going to the grass village. The leader, there was suggested by Kohaku as being suitable to be Pain's Preta path, and also useful to our overall goals. Madara learned who Pain's Preta path was, and tried to make use of the grass for the Akatsuki's plans. The Preta path, as fitting the hungry ghost realm, can steal chakra from Pain's enemies, not unlike Guki-sensei's siphon. Konan, he interrupted her, and the kunoiki realized she was babbling, why did you want me to come here? I am sorry, Naruto-kun, she bowed again, I know you have to K, leader, if you fight him, and I want you to. The more of Pain's paths that your people K, the better it will be for Nagato, and it will make things easier for everyone in the long run. But I was hoping before you K him, you could deliver a message to Nagato for me. You want me to deliver a message to him? He prompted in surprise, and she nodded, why me? Because you seem to have a talent for getting through to people, she told him, so if anyone can convince Nagato, make him listen, it is you. All right, he nodded his understanding, what do you want me to tell him? I understand, the grass scout whispered in relief, after Anko was finished with her. The leaf ninjas untied her still unconscious teammates, and left them behind. The 10 ninjas continued forward at Shikamaru's best speed, though Matsuri seemed to tire out more quickly than the slower Chunin. After just over an hour later, and with no other encounters, they reached their staging area. All right, now we wait for the signal, Iruka instructed them. You four, get ready for your show, Anko instructed Naruto, Hinata, Sakura, and Ino. Naruto nodded. Why is Naruto-san D? She whispered fiercely to Temari. The older woman only smirked at her junior. Sakura and Ino both palmed some sort of pills, though the Sand Chunin could not see what they were. So Hinata doesn't ruin his uniform too early, Temari noted evasively, with a sly grin. Baki lifted the binoculars to his face, and surveyed the disposition of the troops under his command. The one-eyed Sand Jonin reflected, not for the first time, that a spyglass would have been easier, but he still carried the double lenses because it was more useful for when he lent them to other people. All of the Land of Air ninjas were in place, 2 lines of 36 shinobi each, secreted among the fields on the southwest side of the Kasagakure. The grass village was not the most heavily fortified, but based on the intelligence the leaf village had provided, its defenders outnumbered the sand attackers by more than 4 to 1. Even if the Hokage had sent the same number of men as the Kazekage, the allies would still be at a massive disadvantage. But Ko and her few loyalists agents were planning to sow some chaos in the ranks of the Shizokas and the traitors to the grass daimyo. Baki knew the Kages were hedging their bets on 2 long shots. They expected Ayameko to convince the exiled ruler to send his remaining shinobi and samurais to strike the northern flank, helping to even out the numbers, and giving the allies strategic advantage through the native knowledge of the village, its unconverted warriors, and its defenses. Gaara had also informed his teacher that the conclave was hoping some of the grass ninjas submitting the leader, out of fear would switch sides. But if neither of those gambles paid off, the allied forces were looking at a long, difficult fight. The attack will commence in 30 minutes, he told his lieutenants. The 2 younger Jonin and 1 Tokujo left to spread the word, and he noticed the anxiety on their faces. He wished the Kazekage could have been there to reassure them. But the leaders of the great villages were remaining at home, both for defense, and to use the conclave's meeting place to relay messages. A flare went off to the south. There's the signal, Anko said grimly, and then nodded at the quartet. Naruto placed the food pill in his mouth, and Ino and Sakura stepped up on either side of him, additional pills at the ready. Then a second blazing light shot into the sky to the north of the grass village. They did make it, Iruka said with relief, and Temari and Shikamaru both nodded. Matsuri and Choji continued to watch Naruto and company. Hinata took position opposite her 3 friends, and Ino shuddered in fear. Don't worry, Ino pig, Sakura smirked, Hinata isn't going to SU. The blonde medic glared at her rival silently, but stopped shaking, calmed by her comrade's confidence. A seal formed around Hinata's feet, and spread slowly towards her fiancé and the healers. Byakugan art, protection of the 8 trigrams 32 palms, she announced once the circle was complete, and her arms snapped forward, aimed for Naruto's chest. As he bit down on the chakra supplement, she weaved her palms in a careful pattern, carving into Uzumaki's arms and torso. None of the wounds were deep or vital, but they all beat profusely. As predicted, though the threads of sharpened chakra came perilously close to Tsunde's apprentices, neither Sakura nor Ino was see. Finally, Hinata ceased her attack, and while Naruto continued to pull his chakra away from his skin, slowing his regeneration, Ino and Sakura both stepped forward. Each stuffed a plasma pill in his mouth, and then placed a hand on one of his shoulders. The healers each sent a jutsu into Naruto's body to increase the reaction rate of the B restoratives. As a result, Naruto's B began to flow even more heavily. It was then that the Sand Chunin noticed the R liquid was not seeping down onto Naruto's pants, but was instead clinging to his upper body. The former Jinchuriki started to pant, and Sakura fed him another food tablet while Ino gave him another plasma pill. The other shinobi could now see his silver chakra around his body, and Matsuri frowned in doubt. What are they doing? She demanded softly of her senior. Taking food pills like that is dangerous, and it looks like they're trying to make him be to death. Shouldn't he be healing those cuts, anyway? Watch, Temari told her with anticipation, as Naruto placed his hands together. His chakra began to glow brighter as he spared its motion through his body, and bonded it to his B. Ninja art, multi-blood clone jutsu. He roared. The mass of B around him, almost as much as his body normally held, shot away from the fox-faced youth in small spheres. Silver chakra exploded out from each red ball, taking on his shape. An instant later, 50 additional versions of Naruto stood in the field. The original Uzumaki collapsed to one knee, and Hinata rushed over with his clothing, and Sakura forced him to take another plasma pill. As the pale beauty helped him into his undershirt, the medics applied their healing arts, supplementing his now unleashed regeneration. While the 3 kunoiki worked to get the real Naruto back on his feet, Temari, Iruka, and the remainder of Team Anko distributed food pills to the blood clones, 3 each. Each duplicate took 1 supplement immediately. What do you think? Temari returned to the flabbergasted Matsuri. This is the hammer that will strike the grass village. Wait, the younger woman found her voice. I thought our people were going to be attacking, and the leaf ninjas would hem them in. Last-minute change of plans, just in case, Shikamaru told the brunette girl, with a hint of genuine anger under his blasé mask. Besides, this way is safer all around. If a B clone D, it's no big loss. And Naruto's B clones can make shadow clones, if they need to. So we have a huge, expendable army to throw at them. We'll stay here to back him up. Okay, the girl agreed in awe. But then she frowned as another though occurred to her. But why give them food pills? They don't work for clones. That's not exactly true. Iruka joined them. Food pills are much less effective for clones than they are for a real person. For example, each B clone will only get a quarter of the chakra the real Naruto would have. So it is a waste. But the real reason Genin are told that they don't work, is because of the risk to your chakra network. She considered that for a moment, and then nodded her understanding. Overloading Tenketsu was always a danger with artificially restoring chakra. And this would magnify that potential. If the excess chakra from a dozen clones suddenly poured into him, it could injure Uzumaki, permanently reducing his chakra levels, or even rendering him unable to use some or all jutsu. Matsuri finally understood just what a huge risk Naruto was taking to protect his allies. Hey, Anko-sensei, 7 duplicates called out, almost in unison, when are we going to get moving? She smirked appreciatively, and raised her hand. Alright, Naruto's, she shouted, Team Hammer, attack. 50 identical roars filled the air, and the B-clone battalion charged forward, leaving the others behind. So, are we just going to stay and watch? The Kazekage's student asked carefully, no longer presuming anything about the leaf plans. For now, Temari answered. We have to give Naruto a little more time to recover, Hinata said firmly. Once the kid is back to what passes for normal, The snake summoner informed the guest, and the battle is in full swing. We have our own part to play. Kaede Mizuno edged up to the cliff. The rock face curved away under her, having been carved out by the lake that surrounded the legendary tree. She shivered as she looked down at the giant, chakra-gathering oak, her goosebumps mostly but not entirely from the cold of the mountain top. The face of the mist was generally not afraid of heights, however her discomfort in the frigid air was slightly impairing her mental defenses. But then, the land of water did not have much in the way of mountains either, and they were very high up. I should have kept my winter gear, she commented to no one in particular. What was that, Kaede-sama? A mist shinobi with short cyan hair, thick black glasses and a two-handled sword prompted her. Just complaining, she shrugged. I switched back to my regular uniform, since we were coming back to the continent. She gestured at her clothing, which was thin, form-fitting, and while more heavily armored than it appeared, also left decent expanses of her legs, arms, and sea exposed. I didn't expect to end up on a frozen bluff, she continued, waiting to climb down into a huge tree. For that matter, why are we going into the tree, while the leaf ninjas are swimming in through the flooded cave? It was the Mizukage's plan that we sail in and attack from the north, he tried to placate her. Don't handle me, she grimaced, I know I'm whining. But I'm cold. Of course, he agreed carefully. She sighed, and shook out her limbs. Is everyone ready? Attack teams are in place. Support teams are set up, he answered, and there is no indication that we have been spotted. We can go at your command, Kaede-sama. No one has ever attacked the waterfall village this way, she commented. Before those renegades infiltrated 5 years ago, no one had ever been able to invade this village at all. And according to the people the leaf ninjas rescued during the invasion, Bunjiro used Suhi to freeze the waterfall, so the Shizokas could climb it like stairs. The swordsman's eyes narrowed briefly at that, but he quickly returned to a neutral expression, hoping the face of the mist had not seen his lapse. She did not react, so he picked up the conversation thread. You are field commander of our forces, he prodded gently. If you wish to call off the attack, you should do so before the leaf ninjas launch their assault. It would not do to leave our allies in the lurch. No, she shook her head, we can't let them have the waterfall village. Kaede had been informed that the waterfall ninjas were being forced to take the Shozaku oaths, to swear on their lives to follow Guki and his rules, in that order. But there was another problem with this particular village. One of the reasons Guki-sensei captured the waterfall village first, Conan told her captors turned protectors, is because of the hero's water. Why? Naruto piped up incredulously, that stuff's gone for the next 100 years or so, right? And it's really dangerous anyway. Sensei has chakra experts ready to examine the great tree, she answered. He believes that if they study the properties of the tree, its soil, and area around the village, they might be able to speed up the process, or even create an artificial version of the water. And as for the danger, she grinned darkly, your friend Shibuki survived using the water with minimal side effects. And Guki-sensei believes they can find a way to make it safer. And if not, if the water can make a green Shozaku the equivalent of a Jonin, even briefly, then he feels it would be worth the potential as if it saves more lives in the long run. Kaede did not tell her second-in-command and self-appointed bodyguard the other intel her father had passed on to her. I'm just not equipped for this, she confided, I'm a hunter, a jeweler. This is war. From everything I have heard, you did an excellent job in the land of snow, he reassured her, and everyone here trusts you. Well, that's a horrible thing to say, she joked, partially mollified, I'm a hunter nin. They're supposed to be afraid of my job, but at the same time think that I'm just the Mizukage's pretty, narcissistic, unqualified daughter. If people start thinking I actually earned the rank of Jonin, it could ruin my entire reputation. Would it help if I told everyone you were up here complaining you were cold, and asking me to run things? No, she shook her head with a slight grin, maybe it is time to stop being 17. He raised an eyebrow in surprise. Like most mist shinobi, and more than a few ninjas from other countries, he knew that Kaede was older than her apparent 17 years, and used a jutsu to arrest the aging process, at the cost of her overall lifespan. Most people assumed it was just vanity, but he knew it was more than that. Don't give me that, she said sharply, I'm not talking about surrendering to nature. But if I let myself have a few more years, I'll be just as hot, if not hotter, and I'll get more respect. Kaidi Mizuno, age 21. That has a good ring to it. This is hardly the time to be making such decisions, he advised, apparently unimpressed. We're going to war with the two strongest renegades our village has ever produced, and their horde of unflinchingly loyal fake ninjas, she snorted in amusement, when better to make sweeping life choices. She took a breath and stood up straighter, flexing her chakra to throw off the cold, if only for a few moments. Send the messenger to Might Guy, she instructed her third and fourth in command, who had been hanging back just out of earshot. Tell him we are ready to attack. Her third, a willowy kunoiki with a face too angular to be called beautiful, nodded. She signed quickly, and then a dragonfly the size of large robin appeared. She whispered to the insect, and it flew off. How much longer do we have to wait, Guy-sensei? Lee cracked his knuckles. I know you are anxious, Lee, the bowl-cut Jonin managed to make even his soft whisper sound grandiose, but the invasion is not scheduled to begin for another 26 minutes, 41 seconds. And we need to give our friends from the mist time to prepare the descent from the peak. But we are going to attack before they do, Lee argued. And if we attack too soon, Neji shook his head at his teammates' lack of composure, even if deep down he shared the impatience, the mist ninjas will not be able to move in during the initial chaos. Or worse, if they are too far behind, instead of a pincer attack, each of our forces will face separate one-sided battles. Just relax, Lee, Tenten advised, we will go as soon as they are in place. Guy glanced back at the next team in the line. Ebisu was fidgeting, but his three students looked defiantly calm. The mission commander could not remember any of the teens' names, though for some reason he thought he should. But Guy did recall that two of them had been promoted at the last Chunin exam, however he was unsure which ones. His attempt to drag the names out of his brain was interrupted when a large dragonfly buzzed past his head and landed on his shoulder. Might Guy, the summoned animal whispered into his ear, I have been instructed to tell you that our forces are in place, and ready to attack at the agreed-upon event. My thanks, good bug, the Jonin answered confidently, please let your master or mistress know that the message has been received. The arthropod nodded, and then vanished in a puff of chakra. Let's go, he instructed loudly, and before he had finished the statement, Lee was out into open ground, with Neji close behind. Tenten rolled her eyes, but was smiling as she did it. She darted after the boys, leaving their teacher to make sure the message was passed down the line. Ebisu nodded broadly, and his student were also already moving. Guy saluted and moved to catch up to his charges. The alarm blared and lights flashed as Rock Lee heedlessly broke the plane of chakra warding the cave entrance. The four Shizokus guarding the cavern leaped up immediately, but the sole waterfall ninja in their midst was slower to move. The 30-something Chunin was not there by choice, but as none of his converted former comrades were available, he was given the task to escort Guki's men through the underwater passage. While he had no desire to turn traitor or become one of the anonymous warriors, he also did not want to give up his abilities, so he was stalling. Though what he was hoping to gain by delaying, he could not have said. Until the instant that the alarm went off. Then he half stood, before rolling back and kicking out the closest Shozaku's knee. Lee entered the cave with a kunai in each hand, and he launched both at the blue Shozaku closest to the mouth of the tunnel. He continued forward into the modest space. The masked soldier deflected the first throwing knife, he coughed, and a haze of red exited his lips, however he ignored the potentially lethal wound and reached for his gladius. Before he could draw the blade, Lee was on him, grabbing his wrist to keep the sword in its sheath. Leaf drill, Lee hopped and brought his left foot down on the sergeant's neck in a diagonal axe kick. Then he used the momentum, releasing the Shozaku's wrist and rotating his whole body so he could slam his right foot onto the blue-garbed renegade's temple. Guki's follower bounced away, hitting the cave wall and he slid down the rocks and did not move. Lee twisted his torso the rest of way, so he could land on his feet. 8 trigrams, assassin's palm, Neji intoned as he slid past the next guard. His opponent dove forward, escaping Neji's range before the Hyuga shinobi could touch his back. Unfortunately, this was as the Leaf Jonin had planned, and put the green Shozaku in range of Tenten, who entered the cave with her katana drawn left-handed, and a razor-edged shield on her right arm. Both weapons flashed out, and the emerald uniform turned dark red as its owner pitched down onto the rock floor. The second green Shozaku stumbled towards Neji, as the waterfall ninja's heel nearly pushed his knee out of joint. Neji caught him as he flailed to recover, and flipped the private over his shoulder into the weathered granite. He stepped in, and placed his hand over his opponent's heart. The Shozaku just had time to gasp in fear, before Neji destroyed his sea muscle and the tenketsu around it. The last Shozaku, a second blue, started to panic. He stepped back, skipped over the waterfall ninja's extended leg, and dove for the pull. But a chain wrapped around his leg, and Might Guy yanked the rogue back. Guy caught the rogue and almost casually snapped the sergeant's neck, before wrapping his Manriki Gasari around his right arm. The waterfall shinobi stood back up and straightened his uniform, struggling to keep the relief off his face. Guy-san, it is good to see you again, the Chunin stated simply. Have we met? Guy asked. Then his body shook, but he did not stumble, as Konohamaru collided with his back. No, but I saw you during the invasion. Your team rescued my daughter, but not my wife or son. There was no accusation in his tone, and Neji had the impression the shinobi was attempting to justify his collusion. Well, we are back, with additional forces. Guy stepped forward, allowing Team Ebisu into the cave and letting the next team queue up behind them. My team and I know our way through the tunnel from last time, the bowl-cut Jonin noted, but some of our comrades do not. Could you help them find their way? The waterfall Chunin nodded, but denied his agreement by stating, the alarm went off. They know you are coming, and they'll be waiting for you. I expect that will be the case, Guy said with a lopsided grin. Neji. Guy signed when they reached the edge of the tunnel. The Hyuga Jonin activated his Byakugan, and began signing. Byakugan art, Karaname Jutsu, he burbled, and then his three teammates all saw what he saw, 11 Shizokis surrounding the exit in 2 rows, and dozens of others spread out more loosely behind them. Guy hesitated, disliking this part of the plan immensely. But Lee caught his teacher's eye, and nodded expansively, and Guy gave him a thumbs up. He floated forward, as Neji dropped down to the floor of the submerged tunnel. Tatsu, Tori, Uma, Tora, Tatsu. Guy focused on the words in his head as he formed each seal, Hitsuji, Tora, Mi, Ne, Tatsu. Kaiten, Crimson Passion Jutsu. Guy roared into the water. 3 twisting streams of intense flame shot out of the cave, burning through the closest Shozaku. But more importantly, their heat converted all of the water in the cavern into steam. 8 trigrams, in folding dome, the seal spread out from Neji's feet, and he surrounded his team in the protective barrier, guarding them from the scalding water. The steam erupted from the cave, blinding the nearby Shozaku, 2 of the closest ones permanently. The next instant, Team Guy exploded from the cave, even as the water flowed back in to replace the liquid that the Jonin had removed. A triple helix of deep red flames shot up from the ground, followed by a thick cloud of steam and shrieks of, "My eyes!" The face of the mist shook her head in mock dismay at the overdone entrance. All right, we have our signal, Kaidi announced assertively. She watched as the Shizokis around the pool charged forward, and a second group of leaf ninjas appeared in the space Guy cleared. Then she clipped her binoculars back to her belt and stepped forward. The mist ninjas drove spikes into the cliff, and a handful activated Doton Jutsus to reinforce the stone. The noise would have been noticed before, but now blended into the dull roar of the battle below. Kaidi fully expected they would be spotted, now that they were moving openly, so she clipped the climbing rope onto her harness, and dove over the ledge. She plummeted towards the legendary tree, and when she was 20 yards above it, she pulled the brake, slowing her descent. She stopped just above the topmost layer of leaves, and glanced into the oak to find a path down. As a dozen of her comrades slid down along the curve of the water-carved impression, she sliced through the cord with her tanto, and dropped into the branches, clearing the way for the next ninja who would use the rope. She ran down the tree's limbs, quickly shedding her climbing rig. She noted thankfully that the air was noticeably warmer, even though they were only a quarter of a mile lower. She reached their second marshalling point, on one of the wider branches. The tree was larger than she had imagined, and her whole attack force could fit on the limb she occupied and the one behind her. She waited until the first 7 strike teams were fully gathered, watching carefully for any Shizokas to turn towards them. She also kept her eyes out for waterfall ninjas. The hunter Nin only saw a handful of men and women wearing the crest with the mirrored jagged lines. Most appeared to be slowly backing away from the battle, but a few rushed forward recklessly. She wondered if they had chosen to side with Guki but had not been sworn in yet, or if they were just foolish or bloodthirsty. The second line settled into place, and she whispered, "Ready." After a few murmurs of assent, she raised her right arm and then dropped it. And the 12 Tokujo behind her started signing. Suten, they all announced in unison, "Hidden Miss Jutsu." A thick fog arose from the lake, sweeping over the back lines of the defenders. And after the jutsu was in place, Kaidi and the rest of the front line jumped out of the tree, and darted across the water into the battle. Kisame Hoshigaki paused, as a familiar sensation struck him. He looked down and saw a thick cloud curling around his feet. He turned back, and saw a familiar wall of mist obscuring half of the waterfall village. Inside the fog, he saw flashes of ice forming, and heard screams. "Don't get ahead of me, Bunjiro," the Guild renegade snarled appreciatively. Well, a familiar voice said grandly, as its owner broke through the Shozoku's back line, "If it isn't Itachi's partner. We meet again, at last." The Jinchukriki of the Seven Fins raised Samehada with a deadly, yet happy grin. He pointed the shark-skinned sword at Might Guy, and charged. Futon, Cyclone Spike's Jutsu, 7 identical voices shouted. Dozens of cones of hardened air flashed across the battlefield at the first line of Shizokus. Doton, Mountain Wall Jutsu. Suten, Water Burst Jutsu. Some of the masked warriors were able to defend themselves with rock or water, but the Naruto's attacks still killed or disabled 11 of them. The Shizokus started to counterattack, but the clones were already charging in, and they finished the slow and the injured before ganging up on the more highly ranked soldiers. 60 yards to the north, a slightly larger group of clones was surrounding a tougher knot of Shizokus. The anonymous renegades had started by using quick, weak, and accurate attacks, trying to destroy what they thought were mere shadow clones. But the tougher duplicates shrugged off those attacks, and what damage the Shizokus did, regenerated before their eyes. In the meantime, the Narutos showed them no mercy, and the knot began to unravel. Mixed in with the Shizokus was a single grass kunoichi, who stumbled in terror as the koppies closed in on her, after the last of Guki's men fell. She struggled through her fear, and started to form a jutsu. But one Naruto offered her a hand. She blinked in surprise, and then carefully took it and let him pull her up. "We're not here for you," he told her, "we're here for the Raikage's followers, including your leader. If you are with them, you can run back and warn them. Otherwise, you can run back and tell the remaining grass shinobi what I'm telling you, or you can head north and join Ayameko and her group in their part of the attack." She studied his face for a moment, and then nodded, and ran north. The clone bobbed his head triumphantly, and he turned west to join his brothers. "Leader, we are under attack," the Red Shozoku stated without preamble, as he entered the office currently occupied by Pain's Pret-a-Path. Obviously, the reincarnated body stated, its former mind adding more sarcasm to the statement than Nagato normally would have. "Unless I miss my guess, Sand Shinobi are attacking from the southwest, and Leaf Ninjas have formed lines to the north and east, to keep us from flanking the sand." No sir, the lieutenant shook his head, surprised. "The attack is coming from the east, and you could say it is the Leaf, but in a way it is just one person. Naruto Uzumaki is attacking us. Alone." Leader frowned in amazement, both at the audacity and because Guki's information had proven wrong. "Yes and no," the Red Warrior stated, "we don't have an exact count, but it appears there are 4 to 5 dozen primary attackers. But it is hard to count them in the chaos, and they are infrequently using shadow clones as well." "But the primary attackers aren't shadow clones?" Pain prompted. "Apparently not," his junior affirmed. "Initial reports indicate more than one Naruto taking B injuries and then regenerating. Transformed Leaf Ninjas would not regenerate as he does. Could he have made that many B clones?" The general pondered aloud. Then he took a breath to focus. "What else? Those initial flares came from the north and south. We don't have any reports yet," the Shozoku explained. "So far, none of the scouts we sent to investigate have returned. Probably secondary forces to keep us from surrounding Naruto," Pain decided, "and waiting to attack until the initial push is done. They can't believe that 50-some clones of Naruto could take out the 3 legions of Shizokus and the 93 remaining grass ninjas we have here. Naruto is meant to soften us up. Initial reports indicate 20 Shizokus dead and 15 injured," the messenger stated, "but none of the Naruto clones have been taken down, but this could be due to our people treating the copies like they are shadow clones. Also, the Narutos have not killed or seriously injured any of the grass shinobi. In that case, send the grass ninjas out to fight Naruto, leader ordered, with a few of our people mixed in, one Shozaku for every 2 grass ninjas. And impress upon them how important this is. Then, send the 2nd Legion south, to deal with whatever opponents are holding that line. What about the northern flank? The lieutenant asked. I will take men to reinforce the north wall, but I won't sending anyone out, yet, Pain explained. Kohaku Dono is scheduled to arrive with another half legion by nightfall, and I will contact her and request she increase her pace. They should be able to make it here in just over an hour, and then we can catch the mist, or leaf, or whoever is blocking our northern edge in a pincer attack. Yes, sir, the red-masked renegade grinned under his hood. He bowed slightly, and then rushed out to deliver the orders. Ranshinsho, Naruto's fist hit the grass warrior's forehead, disrupting the genin's nerves and blurring his vision. The disabled shinobi collapsed, his limbs flailing wildly as he tried to move. The red, female Shozaku behind him stepped over her supposed ally, swinging her gladius at the Uzumaki clone's neck. The facsimile brought up his left arm to block, but the short blade carved through the simulated bone and flesh, and bit into his throat. Rasengan, the D-clone forced the last of his chakra into his remaining hand, and jammed it into the Shozaku's wrist. He was too far gone to fully form the spiraling sphere, but it was enough to shred the skin and carve furrows into the muscle and sinew underneath. As the blood that had formed the duplicate splashed onto the turf, the Shozaku's blade fell from her useless, if still attached, hand. Naruto grimaced as the clone's memories returned to him. What is it? Hinata asked, her voice touched by concern. They are switching tactics, the real Uzumaki explained. They must have figured out that I'm not supposed to kill the grass ninjas, because they are sending a lot more of them to fight me. And they're not treating us like shadow clones anymore. They've taken down 3, 4 of my B clones so far. Still, considering how many of them you said your clones have taken out, we're doing pretty good, Anko noted. Naruto, switch tactics, Iruka ordered. If they are using strong K techniques, have your B clones start using more shadow clones, so your opponents either waste their chakra or switch back to weaker attacks. The blonde Tokujo nodded. He took 2 more food pills, and after waiting a few seconds for the restoratives to take effect, split off 3 shadow clones. The duplicates immediately cancelled themselves, spreading their knowledge and ki their more robust counterparts. What about the grass ninjas? Shikamaru asked cannily. So far 14 have headed up north to join Ayameko's people, Naruto answered, and I've knocked out another 9 who wouldn't listen. His eyes clouded again, and when they cleared, he looked at Temari. My guys are seeing a bunch of Shizokas heading south out of the village, Uzumaki informed the Sand Kunoiki hastily, maybe 100 of them. We'll let Baki-sensei know, she nodded, turning to Matsuri. Anything else? Sakura prompted. Nothing yet. I still haven't found, leader, or that KO woman. What about the northern flank? Choji asked, have they noticed Ayameko-san yet? Not that we can tell. Naruto shuddered, both from his body fighting against the strain of overusing the food pills, and from the information that kept flooding into him from the destroyed duplicates. Anko watched him carefully, remembering the Hokage's instructions, though he was actually doing better than she had expected, even considering his unique nature. Kid, have 1 or 2 of your clones try to sneak in, Anko told him. We need to make contact with the loyalists still left in the village, and find Pain. Naruto nodded, and created another soft duplicate to relay the message. Doton, Stone Jacket Jutsu, a Naruto trapped a younger, male grass shinobi, while another copy of the knucklehead snapped the S of a green Shozaku, and then K her out with a sharp rap to the T. Then new memories flowed into them, and the blood clone who had employed the Earth Chakra technique recognized his assigned number in the smaller of the 2 groups of new assignments their progenitor sent out. Cover me, he requested of the shadow clone, and the weaker facsimile nodded. Doton, Stone Spear's Jutsu, he intoned, seemingly using the art to divert or but in reality, the purpose of the Jutsu was to hide number 26 while he signed quickly. As the defenders jumped over the jagged rocks, they saw a red Shozaku plunge his gladius into Naruto's H, and the duplicate exploded in a mist of R liquid. There's a group of the punks that are about to break through our lines over that bluff, the lieutenant informed them gruffly, back 'em up. I have to get back and report to the captain. The lower-ranked Shizuka's nodded, and took off in the direction indicated. The three ninjas hesitated, and then followed. Under the chakra-generated mask, Naruto 26 grinned. The shadow clone had gathered up the B of a fallen renegade, giving him the illusion of being a B clone at the moment of D. And his dispersal had let the other Narutos know that 26 was sending them more opponents. The copy sheathed his pilfered blade, and then ran into the village unimpeded. Baki-san, we have incoming, a Tokujo reported to the Sand Army's field commander. It appears to be one of those groups of 100 legions. I believe the Kazekage said they were called. The Jonin nodded, running calculations in his head. If the legion's complement was within the standard parameters provided by Conan, his crew had a slight edge in skill, even if they were outnumbered by almost 50%. And that was not even considering his doubts about Guki's former ally's information. Not that he thought she was lying, but based on what he had heard, the Kazekage's teacher believed her opinions might have been colored, one way or the other, by her feeling about the renegade-turned-Kazekage. He noticed his third watching him closely, and Baki dispelled his contemplation, especially any doubts he was harboring. He started to say something, but was interrupted. Sir, more movement, more Shizukas, Baki asked carefully, or grass ninjas? Neither, the junior Jonin stated. It was 3 copies of Naruto Uzumaki. Only now, there are 15, no 18 of them. Baki grinned. You hear that? He told his squad leaders, it's supposed to be our job to guard the Leaf Ninja's left flank, not to have them send people to help us. That kid may be our ally, and the Kazekage's good friend, but that doesn't mean we can let him show us up. Confident murmurs of assent flowed through the ranks. You have your orders, he barked at them, hit them hard, and focus on the blues to take out their middle command structure. Then sweep back on the greens and tans, they are cannon fodder, but the Shizukas rely on numbers. Then, once the majority are down, we can take out their leaders. For the Sand Village. For the Kazekage. For the Kazekage. They echoed him as they charged forward. Hey, I found you, a vaguely familiar voice called out, and the one-eyed, Jonin, Grass Kunoiki paused, and looked back as the red-garbed Shozaku jogged up to her. Why were you looking for me in the first place? Does, leader, want me for some reason? Ko shot back darkly, reaching for her whip. Then she thought of something, and did not grasp the weapon. Forget that. More importantly, where are the rest of my people? She demanded. I think most of them were sent out to fight, she heard the frown in his tone. Why would he do that? She shot back, he doesn't fully trust us. I guess to slow down the attack, he shrugged, since we don't want to K the grass ninjas, it's making things tougher. We don't want to K the grass ninjas. She prompted in confusion, her hand moving towards her lash again. Of course not, you're here to conquer and eat us. No, he sounded annoyed, we're here to save you. Then his head snapped up. Duh, you think I'm one of them, he explained, reaching for his cowl. He dispelled the masked part of his transformation, revealing his familiar blonde hair, blue eyes, whisker marks, and leaf shield. You, the rough-looking woman purred, suddenly snapping her weapon across the ground beside him. I missed my chance in the land of birds. When your teammate came, my brother, so I'll have to savor you now. Ayameko said she was a bit of a psycho, 26 thought to himself, but I think she might have downplayed it. We kinda don't have time for that, he reminded her pointedly. Ko closed her eye and exhaled sadly. Then she nodded, as she looked at him more seriously. Of course, she agreed, I need to go pull my people off the front lines, and have them help you guys. Ayameko and the other grass ninjas who escaped with your daimyo are attacking the north wall, he informed her, and the loyal K nodded. I'll get everyone who isn't a traitor or two chicken-s to help her, Ko told him. Great, Naruto said. Then he split off a shadow clone, who instantly dismissed himself. We've been trying to do that, he told her, but we haven't had the best luck. Not all of your guys seem to trust me. I just let everyone know what is happening. I better get moving then, she smiled slightly. Wait, he reached out, but stopped short of touching her. Before you go, do you have any clue where this leader guy is? His disguise restored, Naruto number 26 made his way through the grass village, heading towards the building his unhinged ally had indicated. He felt mildly guilty, ambushing them while wearing their uniform. But he swallowed the recriminations, telling himself it was necessary to win the battle, and part of being a ninja. KO had pointed him towards a secondary weapons depot in the northern quarter of the village. She claimed not to know specifically why Leader was there instead of in the main grass headquarters. The rumors she had picked up was that he was waiting for something, but she also did not know what. Naruto had told her the truth about Leader being a path of pain replacement for the real grass ninja, and she had thanked him suspiciously before setting off again. He wasn't sure he trusted her fully either. Even though Ayameko said KO's only redeeming trait was her loyalty, that did not mean she had not been turned. Or, he continued his line of thought, if Pain found out KO has been loyal to the grass daimyo since he betrayed her and her brother that time, he could be giving her false info. Still, it's the only lead I have, so I guess I'll check it out. As he approached the armored structure, he noticed an increased number of Shizokis, both coming and going, and standing guard. It confirmed KO's intel, but also meant he had to be more careful. I might look like one of them on the outside, he reminded himself, but I don't know their secret handshakes or passwords or whatever. And I have one of their swords, but if they have any other special equipment, it could be a problem. He kept his head up, and ran straight for the building. He had chosen red because they were the second highest rank, but much more numerous than the greys. He hoped it would give him a better chance to blend it, with enough perceived authority to avoid getting questioned. But despite the real Naruto's general good luck, the B-clone's hopes were destined to be dashed. Another red Shozaku stepped in front of him. What is your designation, and why are you here? Get out of my way, Naruto snapped gruffly, lowering his voice both to disguise it and to hide his worry. I have critical information for the general. And that allows you to ignore protocol, why? The real lieutenant asked. Because it is about the grass John and KO, the B-clone lowered his voice and glanced sideways at the handful of grass ninjas scattered amongst Guki's men. The guard took a thoughtful breath and studied him. Look, if we have to do this, at least take it inside, the fake suggested angrily. I can't have them knowing which unit I came from. Fine, the sentry nodded, come with me. Sergeants, I will need your assistance as well. He tilted his head towards the imposter in a way that indicated a smug, self-important grin, and stated, you understand, just to be safe. Just hurry it up, Naruto grumbled in genuine impatience. 26 shut the door behind him. Having eliminated the guard and his backup, the B-clone had quickly searched the building, until he found the room he was looking for. A conference room on the third floor of the secondary base, with a large, north-facing window. He waited, painfully counting the 13 minutes, until the Shizokis had all left the room, and no new messengers were immediately visible. Leader turned to face the new interruption, and then frowned, his eyes narrowing. You are not a Shozaku, he told the young man, his eyes shifting from Leader's green to Pain's blue circles. Darn it, Naruto thought silently, I hoped I could get him to tell me what he's doing here, before he figured it out. What do you mean, sir? The duplicate tried to bluff. Don't get me wrong, Pain said smugly, and Nagato's mind forced down the arrogant mental remnant that allowed him to masquerade as the grass commander for more than 2 years. You could probably fool any other Shozaku, and maybe even someone like the Reaper. But there are a number of small elements to that uniform, designed specifically to complicate transformations. You captured most of them, but not all of them. Leader raised his hand, and made a grasping motion, and the transformation jutsu reversed as all of the chakra was drained from it. Then he continued to drain the copy's energy, and 26 felt his extremities begin to soften. He hadn't realized he had expended so much of his ki getting here. As expected, Naruto Uzumaki, Nagato forced neutrality into his fragment's voice, but it was difficult, due to both his own desire to question the Leaf Ninja about Conan, and Leader's soul fragments wished to deride the boy's foolishness. But just a copy, the Rinnegan fell on Naruto's melting fingers. You won't last much longer at this rate. Doesn't matter, 26 growled proudly, I was hoping to figure out what you were waiting for, but I still fulfilled my primary mission. Release. Got him. Naruto suddenly shouted, jumping to his feet. The other shinobi all turned to look at him. Pain's in a backup bunker, near the north wall, he informed them. Hinata, Aruka asked, and the pale beauty extended her vision, and linked it to everyone else. Matsuri almost fainted from the sudden influx of sensory input, but the others had all practiced for this moment. There, Naruto pointed, though that did little to help them. 50 meters south of the wall, just off the main road, he explained, and Hinata focused on the area for them, that squat, green oval. Great, now if we can just get there before he moves again. Anko began, but then Temari cut her off. What's that? The Sand Jonin asked, having let her sight roam in Hinata's shared Byakugan. First she looked to the south, observing the fight between her own people, and the Shizokus. Then she shifted to the north, and that was when she cried out. Hinata, north, near the edge of your range, the fan user exclaimed. That's not the edge of my range, Hinata said with the barest hint of pride, and then sent more chakra to her eyes, expanding the diameter of her sensory sphere. Reinforcements, Shikamaru stated darkly. They're gonna catch the grass loyalists, and slam them into the wall, Choji said anxiously. Hinata dismissed her jutsu, and the 10 ninjas huddled. That's what he was waiting for, Naruto said, mostly to himself. Do we have any way to contact them? Ino asked quickly. Not real. Anko started to shake her head, then locked her eyes on her Aruka, your hawks. Summoning jutsu, apparently thinking the same thing, Yumino had already beat his fingers and slapped the ground. Harrier, Lancaster, Zero, the former teacher addressed the 3 avians as they appeared. Our allies from the hidden grass are about to suffer a surprise attack from the north. We need you to get word to them. They will be wearing headbands like this. He sketched the variant insignia in the dirt. The raptors all studied it briefly, and then saluted with their right wings. They hopped awkwardly, and then flapped their wings hard, taking to the sky and turning north. That won't be enough, Matsuri insisted hoarsely, trying to hold on to the memories of what Hinata had shown her. They have only a few dozen ninjas, and just over twice as many samurais. They'll be effectively outnumbered on both sides. It looks like the daimyo didn't let Ayameko take all of his forces, Sakura noted. We've got to help them, the younger Sand Kunoiki insisted. The others shared looks at her insistence, and then grinned. Hinata, you go with Naruto, Anko ordered, the rest of us will help back up the grass shinobi. If we hurry, we might spring the trap before these new shozo. Wait a minute, Anko-sensei, Naruto interrupted, and the snake summoner started to get annoyed that everyone was cutting her off. Hinata should go with you, he insisted, you'll need all the help you can get, and it will be easier for me to blend in with my clones and sneak in if I am alone. Both of his teacher looked dubious. Are you sure, Naruto? Aruka asked diplomatically, you're still recovering from your multi-B clone jutsu. What he's trying to say is, that, blend in, and, sneak in, are not the first, or even the 10th, strategies that come to mind when talking about you, Shikamaru added bluntly. Maybe not, Naruto shrugged, but my clone made it there, and this isn't exactly normal stealth. Alright, Anko agreed, knowing he was right about their team needing Hinata more, but if anything goes wrong, call us. Be carefully, Naruto, Hinata said softly, taking his hands. I'll try, for you, he agreed gently, before the back of her left hand. Fine, Anko rolled her eyes, but fondly, let's get going. The others took off, and Naruto zipped up his jacket. It's time we meet again, Pain, he told the city skyline, before breaking into a jog. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.